Time for a nice and pre-noon arm day, which bulking, usually I'm going to tend to make my lifts a bit later into the evening so that I can kind of go into it knowing, all right, I ate a ton of food today, I'm full of carbs, I'm full of energy, I'm ready to go wild, right? Plus I drank X amount of water, like I'm just totally hydrated and prepped. Dieting down, and even though it's only been 2 days, so I don't really feel really different at all, that's when I'm a bit more comfortable with a morning lift. Even like an instant morning, like even a fasted lift, I'm not super concerned about. You know, usually my logic is like, well, you got to eat something first, so you're not burning through all of your internal glycogen stores. But if you're dieting down, that is kind of the point. You know, I do not think a fasted morning workout is your best bet if you're trying to gain size and grow and get bigger, because it's almost like you're trying to coddle your whole build and make sure it's well fed, make sure it's got enough rest, and make sure it, you know, it maybe took a nap and it's got enough energy. Like, you kind of have to baby yourself in a way when you're bulking up, just to make sure everything's on point so you actually do progress, you know. But with dieting down, I mean, the end-all be-all, like, primary variable that's going to decide if you actually make it happen or not is really your food intake. So obviously my training is still important. I want to stay strong, I want to get pumped, I want to be pumped anyway, but like I want to just, you know, keep everything in moving order so that I don't lose any muscle mass in the process. But the training, it comes second to the diet. You know, we say this a ton. It's like, oh, you know, abs are made in the kitchen, or dude. It's probably the truest thing you could say. You know, somebody could work out and get decently big. Actually, wait, what the hell am I even saying? No. Someone could work out and get decently defined, but if they never ate enough food, like if they didn't push themselves into a real calorie surplus, they're never going to gain much substantial size. You know, so if that's your goal, if you actually do want to grow and put on real muscle and like be able to say, oh, my arms are now 18 inches instead of 15 inches, or, you know, any kind of thing like that, it is going to require some calorie intervention, and vice versa. You know, you want to get back into a 34 waist, you want to get back under 200 pounds, you want to get to, you know, the same numbers in terms of like height, weight, body fat percentage that you were however many years ago. You can train all you want, but if you don't actually get control of that dieting side of things, it's just not going to happen the way you imagine it, or at least the ideal way that you'd imagine it. And that's a classic blunder, you know, because for the most part, I think we kind of idolize the workout itself, like the gym's training session, as, you know, where we're really putting in work. And it's true, of course, but not to give outside of the gym, like eating times, the same level of respect, or at least just putting it on the same podium of importance. I think you're starting to lose me a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So the guys who end up making a real crazy change year to year, and freaking months to months, whatever, they're the guys where, you know, as easy as it is for them to take a set to failure, is as easy, if not easier, as it is for them to actually, you know, get all their meals tracked and prepped, or maybe they don't even have to prep them, but they have a good grasp of like, okay, it's 2 p.m. I've already eaten 1,200 calories. Maybe that guy has another 1,200 left for the whole day. He's gonna be conservative with the way that he actually eats them, because he wants them to spread out over that whole time frame. And that's one more. This will be my finisher tip for the day. But when it comes to the idea of fasting or intermittent fasting, I don't think there's any magic to it. But I do think that if you can wait for breakfast or your first meal to be around noon, if not maybe a little further, maybe like noon or 1, and just, you know, keep yourself full of just, you know, some 0-calorie electrolytes with a bunch of water or things along those lines. Now, instead of having to spread out, you know, what you might call this much food over an entire day, you already went that long, you can spread it out a little bit denser for the rest of the day, you know. But there's a sweet spot there too, because if you take that too far, then you're going to put yourself in this like survival hunger, like, oh, I gotta eat something, holy crap. And then you're going to end up wanting to overeat. beyond whatever, calorie restriction you were aiming for. So, if you got a ravenous appetite, then you've got to be extra particular about your meal timing, and maybe make sure you have like a little like some kind of snack or something to hold you over between, who knows. That's kind of it's an individual by individual kind of thing. But for me, I can handle waiting a little bit for meal number 1, which based on my circumstances gives me a little bit of an edge, because to go from waking up to noon with no food, that's cool. But for me to go to like from 6 p.m. to whenever I go to bed with no food, I'm weak, right? That's my weakness. I'm gonna want to eat something because I'm like, it's just the end of the day, So if you can find out what period of time you've got a little bit easier to back off food-wise, I think it makes a little bit more sense to lean into that. But lift-wise, well, we just talk about the lift once we actually get in there. All right, let's get freaking real here. So, basic plan, start with curls first, and really just try to go as wild as possible. Mark's smacking some chest, I got some arms. So I just did a feeler of a bicep biased chin up, and it actually felt sweet. So I think I'm gonna do those next. But let's start with a heavy standing easy bar cable curl to get the ball rolling. There we go. Okay. Whew. Whew. 2 more. Okay, I lied. Just that one is good. I'm normally one to say, or I was one to say, chin-ups for biceps? What the hell are you talking about? But I'm starting to get it. So this will be my first time actually trying a working set of chin-ups. And I'm not using my back. I got my step stool so I can reach up here. But what I'm really trying to do is pull my hands towards my shoulders, right? If I start getting too much lats, that'll be my cue that my biceps have had enough. But it's really the exact same setup as bicep bias pull downs, but now instead of pulling the weight down, I'm pulling my body up. So let's make this shit happen. Okay. Whew. Okay. Interesting. Let's do bicep bias pull down instead. I see the appeal, but it's not clicking for me today. Those were cool. I think it's a little bit too much of a compound movement. This will be good because I can really
put all the tension into my biceps instead of my lats. But it was a good working set. I'm gonna prefer this version. Let's get as real as I can here. Not too heavy. Okay. One more of these, then I'll do a finisher. Okay, one bicep finisher, then move on to push downs. The 40s are asking for a beat down. Now, doing this kind of incline bench, sort of like extra stretch bias curl, I'm not going to need to go as heavy as a regular dumbbell curl, especially because I can kind of swing a regular one just a touch. But here, the special part of this movement, and when I'm bulked, I'll go heavy. I mean, I think I've even done 60s here. But the point is more so, I feel getting a really good squeeze on top and holding it. So if it's too heavy, you're not gonna be able to hold it. And I wanna go light enough that I'm comfortable really relaxing into the stretch. You know, because if I had like 80 pounders and I had them up here and I let them kind of fall down too quick, I could totally pull something. It'd just be too heavy. You know, being in a real stretch position like this, it's kind of a compromising state, if you know what I'm talking about. So it's like I'm going to be a little more careful on preacher curls with a barbell or an easy bar at the bottom, you know, because that's where some shit could happen. I'm not usually worried about it because I don't go so heavy to think about it. But yeah, these is a good squeeze and crazy stretch. These are sweet. And I want my palms like all the way at the bottom of the dumbbell handle. Yes. Oh my God. All right, let's do some tries now. Buys are complete after that set. Usually I'm one to kind of lean into a rope extension, but this cable goes out far enough. I'm gonna try it leaning up against the upright this time. And pretty light, only 150. I don't want to feel my elbows get tender on set number 1. So doing a light squeezing push down first, it's kind of working twofold. For one, it's a good starter working set, of course, but it's also kind of warming me up for later. You know, like it's like how I like doing leg extensions before any kind of heavy pressing. just gets me ready. Even if it's not a real working set, it's just a good starter. But I'm gonna make these really burn. Okay. One more. Okay. All right, let's go do something a little heavier. All right, today might actually be a little lower volume tricep wise, because I mean, after a few of these, I might feel like trying to get their friggin' fair share. But this is an awesome movement as a pullover, but jerry rigging it a touch by swinging around the other side and climbing around. It's a very good controlled push down. So this will be good. Let me just get a better song going. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. One more of those.
It's shit hard.
And 50 reps. Maybe just push over here instead of trying to pull. I think that'd be a little better.
Come on.
Okay. No, not that much. Two more. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, holy shit. That's burning. Those first ones he helped, I felt like I didn't push at all. I was like, you push a little.
I wasn't even pushing that far.
Yeah. Well, all done. Let's see how I'm looking. All right, there we go. Naturally lit, warm, not too hot. Today's a good day. A little bit more chill on triceps compared to bis, which is a good change up. I feel like I've been backing off my bicep volume compared to tris, but now my goals have changed, you know, because rather than aiming for like insane stimulation in the sense of like trying to make sure that once I leave the gym, all the extra calories I'm eating all get funneled into, you know, specific muscle growth. Now it's more so maintain the size and strength and just, you know, grain I've got and get leaner on the outside. And it might just be because today was a good pump, but my forearms are already feeling a little bit veinier. That's probably just a day thing though. A few days of a little bit less calorie intake, that's not really going to have an effect. You'll only start to really notice yourself getting leaner probably over the course of at least a few weeks. So don't freak about instant results. But let's start this off in the back. Yeah. By the time I get a bit leaner, the side tricep is really gonna get extra overpowered just from all that kind of tricep grain and, you know, cuts and everything else. But for today is a starter pump, minimal carb intake so far. Yeah, I'm feeling good. So let's get in the car and get out of here and go eat something. All right. Now that is a good freaking lift if I've ever had one. And I keep driving past this fence by this little airport. I think somebody totally ran off the road and like smashed through a bunch of it. Yeah, that's one thing not to forget. You know, as cool as we may feel, you know, pumping shit up, moving around, you know, potentially depending on your strength, hundreds of pounds of freaking real ass steel. Shit, man, give it a little bit of respect. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you've ever seen the videos of guys squatting and they fail, they put the squat on the safety rack and then their finger gets in the middle of it, you know, or I've heard stories where, you know, somebody's on one of the adductor machines and they put their hand in the back of it and the machine has like a sort of pinch point that you might not have known of. I've been lucky enough. I haven't got wrecked too bad. I think I had a 25 like kind of flop onto my big toe a little bit. It kind of hurt, but it wasn't like wrecked. My biggest thing was one time at school, the gym had a bunch of those metal plates with like the I think it's the Eddie Van Halen style like grip, where it's like the knurled or the like fingered handles on like the top two edges to make it like nice and ergonomic. But I was flopping them onto the side because I was doing calf raises and, you know, like picking them off one after the other, kind of throwing them onto the wall against themselves. And I caught my finger like in between two plates and just like totally scissored it. Instantly, like this finger, the size of a freaking grape, like doubled. Luckily enough, there was I ran right to the little like Band-Aid box and there was like some fitness like athletic tape, so I instantly wrapped it up like crazy tight, and that kind of solved the swelling, at least for a bit. It kind of chilled out the inflammation. But yeah, that nail came off. There's like a 2-month period where I put a Band-Aid on it every time I was going to the gym, or I mean really just throughout the day, because, you know, if I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you there, it's right here, you know, so I don't want people worrying like I had some kind of thing. But yeah, that kind of sucked. But I guess all that's to say is, you know, respect the weights, but not only in a physical danger sense, like don't drop it on your phone and, you know, have the lithium battery blow up or anything, but also just kind of in a sentimental, like,
just vibe sort of way, you know? Like you put on a certain kind of clothes when you go into a fancy restaurant. You act a little more formal. You know, it's kind of, you're gonna act a different way when you clock into work. You're gonna act a different way when you're hanging out with your buddies. It's something where I want the gym to be an atmosphere, not only that's there, but that I kind of treat it with, to the point where it's like, okay, it's time to get real here. You know, it's time to actually bring it and make some shit happen. Like, I'm not just in here to loiter, you know. Like when I had my home gym at my parents' house in the basement, it was my bedroom. It was like a gym, bed, and then like a little desk. And I tried not to chill too much in the gym side. Like I didn't want to like sit on the bench on my phone, or, you know, like just goof off when I was sitting. I'd rather just sit at the desk, because in my mind I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be in this weight section, I want it to mean something. You know, I want to actually be here for a reason, not just, you know, be there to be there. And it depends on what your overall fitness goal is, because if your goal is to just be in the space and get used to the gym, then obviously that's different. You know, don't feel bad that somebody's whole life is the gym and that you just want to get a good work at it. You know, that's a little bit different. But that's something where I kind of have to sort of have a split personality description of the working out, because, you know, I want to kind of be the guy who's hyping up the gym for everybody. The more people who work out, the better, because then there's, you know, going to be more gyms, just more people paying for memberships. Gyms are going to want to like actually improve. I mean, I would say we're getting close to, I mean, how many more people are actually getting gym memberships now than there were, you know, 30 years ago? And how many more gyms are there now than there were 30 years ago? You know, it's huge. But for the guys who really want to make the gym their thing, like there's guys who work out, and then there's guys who want to make the gym like I really want to put a ton of energy into this. That's where you got to treat it a little differently than just a daily task. You know, I want to get to I like being at a point now where I don't have to hype myself up to go lift. I'm excited to lift. It's a fun part of my day. You know, it's not like, oh, I got to go to the gym. Like, no, I like going anyway. But for someone who really wants to get after it, you kind of have to put a certain pressure on yourself to say, like, all right, I'm gonna make this shit happen. Nothing is gonna stand in my way from doing so. And I've kind of noticed that over the last few months, actually probably the last few years, because I feel like I'm at a point now where I can keep working out very steadily. You know, like for me to say I'm gonna work out basically on a near daily basis minus a few rest days for the next year, there's a reason that's not an option on what's that one, sports betting. Like, it would not be an awesome you know, there wouldn't be great odds on a bet of like, is Sam gonna work out tomorrow? Is Sam gonna keep working out to the next day or next week? Like, so I've gotten to the point where it's what I do. It's not like something I kind of have to do. So it's a very comfortable situation, because now, like, it's more fun for me than anything, right? It's like it's what I like to do. It's just what I do. But I didn't always feel like that, you know. Of course, I always liked it. Like, there was never a question of like having to come into the gym because I was like, oh, I need to look a certain way. But I was definitely a bit stricter with myself in the sense of like, dude, I've got to lift. I don't care that it's 2 a.m. and I got to wake up at 7. Like, I'm hitting this lift tonight. Like, it'd be crazy if I didn't, you know? And of course, looking at that situation as it is, it would have been better to just get the extra sleep and rest and, you know, get ready for a better lift the next day, you know, and I know that now. But I think there's something that happens with really having a run through a brick wall approach in the beginning, because you can set yourself up for this real kind of just grit and consistency, where I think it's a situation of guys who, you know, go too far, almost realize how far is far enough, and then they know the sweet spot, right? Like, it's different if a power lifter, 20 years experience, you know, like
700 plus pound squatter says, I'm gonna chill out on squats. I've gotten a lot out of squats. I really pushed it hard. Right now, objectively, it's a better move for me to do more leg press, more isolation work, right? Because the guy has lived through it. He's pushed it further than necessary, and now he knows where that sweet spot really is, right? Whereas someone who's never, they don't have that same amount of experience, they might not have that same like reasoning ability to explain what they're doing and really get a grasp of it, just because they haven't really done it yet. Like you could take somebody straight off of the what's a good example, right? I could read a whole book, or I could try to study as much as I want on paper about how to be a mechanic, but I'm not going to know all the little tips and tricks from the crazy experienced guy who's been in the shop for whoever knows how long, right? Because actually kind of getting that level of experience and pushing yourself that hard and setting the bar like really higher than anybody else probably would puts you in a position to say, it's like, all right, somebody who could run 50 miles straight isn't going to have a problem with a marathon, and it's a weird thing to say for me, because it's like, obviously now I know if it's 2 a.m. and I'm going to wake up at a regular time tomorrow, I should take a rest day. But it's different to, I think, have been the guy who said, who cares about how tired I am, or if this is going to mess up whatever, like this lift is going to happen no matter what, So it's just this sort of like hard-headedness as a beginner, or, earlier in lifting career, that, or not even career, but just lifting journey, that sets you up to kind of be a little bit more hard-boiled later on, so that when things get tricky, in like a dieting phase, like if I was a total wuss about dieting and I couldn't stick to it, and I'm like, oh, I'm too hungry, I don't want to, I'd never get lean. It wouldn't happen. So as much as I'm always trying to talk about, like, dude, set yourself up to have an easy routine, like do a routine that you like, then it's going to be easier to stick to, and you're going to have fun with it. If you're dieting, don't eat the blandest food you can think of and starve yourself, because you're not going to be able to stick to that, But with a lot of, with some aspects of working out, and it's a little blunt to say, there's really no better answer than you just got to toughen up. Oh, it's so hard to diet. You could tell somebody as many tricks and tips as you could, but the whole point of dieting is the fact that, it is hard, and to have gone through it and not just like, do a ton of cheat meals every day or just raid your pantry every night when no one's watching, you get something out of that. You're a different guy because of that. And even though people won't know it, let's say you lock in and you lose 50 pounds over the next 6 months or 4 months or however long, like, decent changes. People are going to see that you did it. Some of them are going to be jealous that you did it and think less of you in a weird, like, mean Machiavellian kind of way, which is totally stupid. You do not even worry about that. But they're not going to know all those times that you said, oh man, I know there's ice cream in the freezer. I'm not going to do it. But you will, right? And you get to carry that around with you. You get to carry around the fact that you're not just subject to act on a whim because you got this this craving or this little this whatever, because your mental headspace of, okay, I want to make this happen. Any difficulties that show up on the way are not going to throw me off track, and I'm going to stick with it. That's going to translate. And I think it's probably a little mean for me to say this, but when I see somebody who clearly works out, and this is probably just because I like working out and I know everything that goes along with it, and I see somebody with pretty, like, reasonable gains. I'm not saying 300-pound bodybuilder. I'm saying even like 190, just pretty lean, like big kind of character. I know that they've gone through a lot of the same stuff that I have, and I can resonate with that a little bit more, so I'm a little bit inclined to think higher of guys when I see them and they're just walking around kind of either just big or lean or just something impressive in the space of working out, because I know that didn't happen like nothing. That didn't just happen
randomly or on accident, you know. And it's those smaller things, those like sticking to a diet and counting your calories and actually doing cardio and not punking out and skipping it, or really hitting legs or squatting heavy. Like, as cool as it is just to see somebody lift a ton of weight, when I see someone like that, I know that just as a guy, they're capable of doing it. And it kind of makes me put them in a different class. Not class, that's a weird way to say it, but like just look at them in a different way, because I've got a bit of a sense that, you know, they've gone through some of the same stuff that I value. And I'm not even talking about just dudes who are huge and big and whatever. Like when I see guys who lose a ton of weight and they show me a before and after picture, or I get tagged, or I see the same guy in the gym every time I go and he's always on the elliptical, and I can tell the guy is like very noticeably leaner over the course of the last few years. Like, that's the same thing, you know. And it's this, I don't want to say camaraderie, because it's usually unspoken, but it's just this kind of like sense that I know they're on at least a similar wavelength. They're tuned into a similar channel that I'm on. And to be surrounded by guys like that, and to just know that they're out there, and that, you know, even when I'm sitting alone in the gym and it's like, it's whatever, there's nobody in there, I got my music, or I'm listening to like a motivational kind of music video or something, I know somebody out there is doing the exact same thing as me. And just, you know, just knowing that gets me going. That's what I like about getting to go to all these expos and events and everything, because it's this real congregation of guys who are in the same thing. Like, guys and girls, of course. But like, seeing it in person sometimes is extra validating. Like, if you've never been to an Arnold or an Olympia or a Fit Expo or like a lift event or anything like that, dude, if one is nearby, I would recommend it, because it's not just, oh, I get to see this guy who is on my phone all the time. It's more than that, because there's not anything else like it. You know, you get to go to your gym and you see the guys who are in there, and depending on what kind of gym it is, I mean, when I visit my grandparents down in Florida sometimes, I'll lift at the YMCA, and it's not like Miami, Florida. It's a little more kind of retirement home, like Snowbird, Florida. So, you know, there's no beasts, right? And if you're in a gym like that and it's just always you, dude, you got to get a sense of what's really out there, right? The first time that I got to see like a real crazy 300-pounder walking around, you know, and not that I think I'm ever going to be 300 pounds, but just knowing there's fucking freaks out there running around in the world, that gets me going. You know what I'm saying? There's always a bigger fish, and if I can be part of that school, it just gets me excited. But yeah, plan for tomorrow, either legs or chest. Not exactly sure which. I'll have to decide, because I'm going to be traveling the next 2 days, so it might make more sense to do legs once I'm back rather than do legs there. But I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll decide. Either way, I'll be pumped up for sure. And cardio will. That's a non-negotiable. You know, that's not even on the table. But yeah, I think that's all I got. So whatever lift ends up happening will happen, and I'll see you then. So if you're getting ready to cut down, if you're getting ready to peel off some body fat, see what you built up underneath, hey man, I'm right there with you, right? I want to see those results equally. Oh, I'm a little biased. I want to see my own results, of course, but you get what I'm saying. So I think that's enough of that. Good lift, and I'll see you tomorrow.